Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're tackling a really fascinating contradiction about modern life. We're going to look at exactly why living in an age of literally unprecedented abundance is somehow leaving us more exhausted, overwhelmed, and anxious than ever before, and more importantly, how we can find genuine freedom through intentional simplicity. Because, let's be honest, we live in an era where by every measurable standard we have more than enough, yet we're completely running on empty.
So what if the secret to a better life isn't adding more to it, but actually taking things away? Let's dive right into this counterintuitive idea. Right now, you probably have more choices, more possessions, and more access to information than any previous generation in human history. Yet, ironically, there's a really good chance you're feeling totally burned out. You see, the standard formula we've all been taught, that having more stuff automatically equals feeling happier, well, it's just completely broken. And to understand why, we've got to look at how our brains are actually wired. Basically, your brain has a finite, limited capacity for processing information. Every single choice you make, from what you're going to wear, to what to eat, to which of those 50 unread emails you should answer first, it all draws from the exact same mental energy pool. Think of your brain like a smartphone running 40 apps at once. When you overload it with all these choices and inputs, it doesn't just slow down a little bit. It starts glitching, it overheats, and eventually it crashes. This is cognitive overload. And frankly, it's the baseline reality for most of us today.
This brings us to a famous, honestly brilliant grocery store study done by behavioral psychologists. Researchers set up a tasting display of jams. On some days, they offered a modest 6 choices. But on other days, they went all out and offered a staggering 24 different varieties of jam.
Now, you'd naturally think the larger display would lead to way more sales, right? Well, here's the wild part. While a 24 jam display absolutely attracted more people to stop and take a look, they actually bought far less, and it gets worse. The people who did buy from that massive selection reported being significantly less satisfied with their choice than the folks who only had 6 options. This brilliantly illustrates a concept psychologists call the paradox of choice. See, when you have dozens of options, choosing one thing means you're simultaneously rejecting everything else. So your brain instantly starts second-guessing. Did I pick the right one? This option-flooded society drains our mental energy every single day, whether we're picking out a jam, a career path, or just trying to find something to watch on TV. It points to a desperate need for what's known as voluntary simplicity. Basically, deliberately setting your own standards and just cutting out the excess that doesn't serve you.
And, we see this exact same overwhelm when we look around our physical homes. Studies reveal a pretty shocking statistic, between 20 and 30%. That remarkably low number is the percentage of possessions the average person actually uses on a regular basis. That means 70 to 80% of the stuff sitting in your house is just taking up space, it's collecting dust, and quietly acting as a massive drain on your energy. The contrast here is super important. Psychology actually tells us that our physical space is an extension of our mental state. University research shows that living in cluttered homes actively spikes your cortisol. That's your body's primary stress hormone. People in cluttered spaces report feeling way more fatigued and have a harder time concentrating, whereas organized, tidy spaces actively promote a sense of calm and focus.
So the crucial takeaway here is that every single unused item shoved in your closet or piled on your desk isn't just taking up physical square footage, it is quietly taxing your finite mental energy pool. You have to remember where it is, clean around it, maintain it, organize it. All these micro decisions create a heavy mental load that constantly chips away at the energy you actually have available for the things that really matter in your life. So, why do we keep all this stuff if it just stresses us out? Well, the main reason we hoard things we absolutely don't need, like, say, that jacket you haven't worn in 5 years, is due to an evolutionary glitch called loss aversion. Your brain is essentially hardwired to treat giving something away as a painful, disproportionate loss. That fear of regret, that tiny voice whispering, "But what if I need this someday?" is almost always stronger than the actual, realistic likelihood that you'll ever use it again.
To break free from this physical clutter and that really powerful feeling of loss aversion, you can apply this simple but highly effective filter to your stuff. Just ask yourself this question. If the honest answer is that you'd only vaguely miss the idea of it, it's totally safe to let go. Once you push through that tiny bit of temporary discomfort of releasing an item, you safely and confidently reclaim your psychological space. And trust me, the relief is lasting.
But this cognitive drain doesn't stop with our physical surroundings. Just look at the screens in our hands. 4 hours. That staggering number represents the absolute minimum amount of time the average American spends locked onto their smartphone every single day. And a massive portion of that time isn't purposeful. It's mindless scrolling, consuming a fire hose of content that actively fragments our attention.
And this digital noise takes a heavy psychological toll. We fall right into these unfair social comparison traps, comparing our messy, real-life behind-the-scenes to someone else's carefully curated highlight reel, which just steadily erodes our self-esteem. But listen, we really need to recognize that feeling drained by social media is not a personal failure of your willpower. It's really not. These platforms are purposefully engineered by teams of psychologists to exploit human vulnerabilities. They hijack your dopamine reward pathways specifically to keep you hooked. Reclaiming your attention requires deliberate structure. You can't just rely on sheer willpower. But hey, you also don't need to throw your phone in a river and go live off the grid. It's all about setting boundaries. Turn off the pings that don't matter. Bury those distracting apps deep in folders so you have to deliberately seek them out. And establish daily phone-free zones, like maybe the dinner table or the first hour you're awake. These small, simple boundaries drastically reduce your background anxiety and really help restore your baseline focus.
Now, shifting gears to how we manage our time, many of us unknowingly fall into this completely exhausting trap: busyness addiction. We're actually terrified of an empty afternoon. We feel this compulsive need to fill every available moment with errands and meetings, not because they're actually important, but because sitting in stillness just feels unbearable. But running hard just for the sake of running hard, that inevitably leads to chronic stress and a profound lack of deep, meaningful output. And that busyness trap leads directly to the ultimate calendar mistake. We constantly sacrifice our long-term growth for whatever is pinging us right now. We constantly react to the urgent, a sudden email, a rapid text, while the truly important things like our health, our closest relationships, and our big long-term goals just get perpetually delayed. We have to learn to say no to the immediate little fires so we can aggressively protect our deep, life-shaping priorities. And there's a biological reason for this. Deliberately building empty space into your schedule isn't laziness at all. It's actual neuroscience. See, when your brain appears to be doing literally nothing, it's actually activating what's called the default mode network. This background processing state is a fundamental biological prerequisite for integrating information, sparking creative solutions, and honestly, just maintaining your mental health. If you never give your brain this unscripted downtime, you are losing access to its most powerful problem-solving capabilities.
But here's the catch. Even if you have a perfectly minimalist home and a wonderfully clear schedule, you can still be completely overwhelmed by internal noise. Rumination is this exhausting evolutionary threat detection mechanism that just keeps spinning and spinning without any resolution. It's lying awake at 3 a.m., endlessly replaying a conversation you can't even change, burning massive amounts of mental fuel and going absolutely nowhere.
To simplify that inner landscape, we've got to develop some specific tools. By practicing present moment mindfulness, we can literally rewire the neural pathways that drive that endless rumination loop. We also need to explicitly establish our clear personal values. Defining what actually matters to us acts like a filter, allowing us to consciously redirect our finite mental energy away from what we can't control and bring it right back to the present moment. I absolutely love this quote because it perfectly captures the core message of everything we're exploring in this explainer today. If you play every single note on a piano at the exact same time, it's not music, it's just chaotic noise. The beautiful meaning of your life emerges entirely from the interplay between activity and rest, between having things and releasing things, between doing and just being.
When we finally clear away the physical clutter in our homes, the digital noise in our pockets, and the endless mental loops in our heads, we unlock this truly profound psychological ability: savoring. This is the ability to sit at a dinner table with the people you love, no TV blaring, no phone buzzing, and actually be present enough to experience the joy of your own life without distraction.
Ultimately, what we are doing today is completely reframing the concept of simplicity. It is absolutely not about having less just for the sake of deprivation or somehow punishing yourself. Not at all. It's about making conscious, deliberate room for the things that genuinely count. Because when you know what it's time to let go of, everything that you actively choose to keep becomes immensely more valuable. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today.
You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just start with one tiny thing. Clear off one desk, cancel one draining commitment, or maybe just put your phone in another room for one single hour. Because true freedom begins the very moment you stop chasing the next thing and finally discover the incredibly quiet power of enough.